You know, sometimes the most simple, understated furniture ideas can be the most difficult to design and make. And in a world where instant judgments tend to be made on how something looks, it takes a little more effort to find out how something seemingly simple was actually made. Now in this video I'm going to share with you what has probably been the most challenging piece of cabinetry I've ever made, and forgive my modesty in saying I got grade A at GCE A-level woodwork when I was 17. I gained a distinction on the advanced wood course at Shoreditch College, and this particular piece, made in 2005, won me the Professional Woodworker of the Year award. Well, now that I've blown my modesty, which is curiously expected of craftsmen, my design for a digital touchscreen jukebox was created 5 years before the Apple iPad was launched. So, to cut to the chase, in this video I'm going to share with you the joy of designing and making your own projects, using this jukebox as an example. I will cover the design brief I set myself, the design process, and show highlights of how the jukebox was made to accommodate computer hardware of the time, a stereo amplifier and a tilting touchscreen head. Now, starting with the most difficult aspect, how did I achieve this wafer-thin grooved tambour and get it to curl under all the thick computer cabling that fed into the pivoting touchscreen? Well, I shall reveal that later. Let's first look at the initial design concept and how I arrived at the design solution. Well, being young enough to remember jukeboxes, I searched online to see what was available, and they were of course retro. But what triggered me to build my own was that I learned they used sound systems from 1980s car stereos. Hello, we're in the digital age now. So I looked for the smallest computer I could get hold of, plus the other necessary bits such as amplifier, speakers, bass woofer, and not to mention the touchscreen, which cost almost as much as everything else put together. I then started exploring ideas with lots of sketches, thinking about how the thing would hang together. Obviously, if a stereo sound is to be achieved, you need to place the speakers apart. So I developed this idea into a quick MDF mock-up which I painted. That was soon cut up for firewood when a friend said it looked like a hammerhead shark. That's the trouble with designing from a problem-solving standpoint. Inevitably, others see an association with another idea, even if you haven't consciously copied it. As a designer, I don't copy. So I explored further and decided to stack all the components on the floor, leaning some bits of MDF against it. And I put the heaviest and biggest components at the bottom. So the wedge design was a case of form follows function. In many ways I am an impatient designer craftsman and often take just a sketch and basic dimensions into my workshop. I was probably one of the first to start using maple as a designer maker. Cherry had been a favourite, and I'd already used maple for my corner drinks cabinet. I also used the plank idea again, so I used my small machines and the incredible router to get stuck in and make the thing. The tapered planks were of course matching grain, cut from 1-inch thick boards by 4 inches wide on my small bandsaw. After gluing the panels, they were drum sanded, and then I routed a groove to run along in between each plank to highlight the plank effect. This made the carcass even thinner, so I reinforced it with aluminium right angle section, which I slot screwed to allow for movement. These also served as shelf supports. The making of the tilting head was challenging, and the making of the tambour door from 3mm birch plywood was even more challenging, as in effect I cut through to the last laminate of the plywood. Stop, that's a big mistake. I now recall it wasn't 3mm plywood, but I used 1mm birch plywood, and you can see the thickness in relation to the tiny 1.6mm router bit I used. I think this aspect of my cabinet alone demonstrates how technology has moved the practice away from traditional techniques, as this is a radical departure for tambour construction, only made possible by a router. This just took a long time with plenty of short breaks to keep my concentration absolutely focused. One slip and the whole thing would be destroyed. And the cutting of the tambour track was tricky. I have every tool and machine under the sun in my workshop, but I had to revert to a mini grinder drill attachment to form the radius freehand to a line. This is what the late Professor David Pye referred to as the skill of risk, similar to a dentist drill. I have to say it was very satisfying to get the tambour to work. I should mention also that I rather ambitiously tried designing my own jukebox and video kiosk software using, don't mention it, PowerPoint. It worked great until about 20 hyperlinks froze the whole thing, so I guess it was limited. So the touch-tone software that I use to this day, although rather boring looking, is only 3 touches away from accessing any song in the known universe. My Digital Touchscreen Jukebox was exhibited at the Create exhibition in Cork, Ireland, which Joseph Walsh organised. He also asked me to talk about design and innovation at this event. I found I needed to explain to people at exhibitions generally how it worked, and at a later exhibition in London, which was somewhat more restrained than the Irish one, I think it went by largely unnoticed, because furniture galleries do tend to be rather silent places where there's just a name tag and a price tag, and nothing much else to go on. I'm happy to live with the design, although inevitably the hardware today would be much smaller, and yes, the iPad finally arrived, so you have your jukebox in your pocket. Well, thanks for watching. I hope this has inspired you to take the plunge and design your own woodwork if you don't already. I hope to offer more videos on design, so please subscribe to my channel.